And we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is Carlos and Kim, and we are here for another Speaking Bluntly podcast. And so I'm Carlos, aka CJ, and Kim McCarthy. And Kim, it's been a minute. I know we have some new listeners. So why don't we start today a little bit differently? Why don't we jump into a little bit of our backgrounds and our bios? How's that?
Sure.
And I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, God, I feel like I'm in third grade now.
Sorry.
What Carlos has to say.
Sorry.
What does Kaz have to say?
And I promise you, I'm not bullying you either. Okay, so don't go there.
Okay. My background. I don't think it's all that exciting, but that's probably because I've lived it. When you're in your own car, you're like, well, I got here, didn't I? So, I have a bachelor's degree in sociology, behavioral and social sciences. And I'm going to be really honest with you about this. I didn't know what I wanted to do really for a career. I come from a business family, and my parents, they owned an all-state agency and then a Baskin-Robbins franchise. And I knew I didn't want to do any of that. So I knew what I didn't want to do. So that after I got my bachelor's degree, that said, let's figure out what we're going to do after graduate school. So I ended up getting a dual master's degree in public administration, training and development.
Okay.
And that's when I really, really felt my calling. And that was really cool because I really did jumpstart straight into consulting, doing a lot of technical writing and business resumption, emergency preparedness, because that was all around the Y2K time.
Yep.
And, when our toasters were going to turn on us. Remember that? Our vacuum cleaners will no longer function. Oh,
right.
my
That
goodness.
was a huge fear. I remember that. Yeah, absolutely.
So I was involved with a lot of consulting projects for a couple of years back doing that. And then I started to combine my experience from, the family business experience you never think you're going to take with you because you try to avoid it. And so that was a lot of the recruiting and human resource aspects. And I started bulking that, packaging it together. And then eventually I get to a point where I say, I'd like to specialize in something. So we go back to, I will never, ever work for my family business or go into sales, or never say never.
That's interesting, right? Never say never. I agree.
So I ended up getting my FINRA licenses. And if anyone is in that industry, this will make sense. So I have a completely clean registration, although I'm no longer registered, but 62663 from the FINRA side. And from the insurance side, I had all licenses except for commercial.
Okay.
And risk management and stuff. So having the health benefits and all that really packaged a nice project going forward. And I was the AVP of recruiting and marketing for a broker dealer. And then I springboarded into starting my own business with the pipeline recruiting. And woohoo! And that was 2016. That's 3 years ago, man.
And you've been at it for a minute. That's great.
And I've been, that struggling that water level ever since. Right there.
Yep.
It is, I'm going to mention her name, Dina Martin, and we'll be talking about her in future. But she said, you know what, Kim, it doesn't matter how deep the water is. Once the water line is at your nose, all you want to do is keep your nose above that line, even if it's 200 feet below.
I like that.
Yeah, that made me feel good.
Right.
So anyway, then that springboarded into the people strategies and the pipeline strategies, and then with the 2 magazines.
Sweet. Very cool.
Your
Very
turn.
Cool. My turn. Yeah. So, I grew up in a very small community called Attica, Indiana. My parents came to the United States in the late 60s. I was the only one of 7 fortunate to be born in the United States. So I feel truly blessed for that. My parents must have felt it was a calling because they called me Jesus, so my middle name is Jesus. So anytime people, talk about like God or something like that, yeah, what you need, just jokingly, obviously,
covered.
Seriously. Yeah. And so from there, I I ended up going to school at IUPUI in Indianapolis, Indiana, and kind of like you, I wasn't quite certain like where I wanted to land, professionally. School was never one of my strong points as far as being committed to, hitting the books and everything. I was too much about sports and play and everything else like that. But along the way, when you're in college, you start to figure out right away that you don't quite necessarily have the income or the funds that you need to support what you want to do outside of college and evening activities. So long story short, I walked into at the time it was called Hook's Drugstores. And Hook's Drugstores was a local based drugstore chain, primarily Midwest, probably, even Indiana to a certain extent. And I walked in and literally they had just cleaned house. I guess they had some type of internal like theft issue and they fired all the employees. And so I guess that, they would accept anyone walking in, and needless to say, I got a job there. And that was my, I think sophomore year. Yeah. Sophomore summer year of schooling. And then whenever summer ended, there was no reason for me to not continue to work. So I ended up at the point where I was going to school full time, working about 25, 30 hours a week. I enjoyed it. The hours were flexible. It was a great, pretty good work schedule. And when I got finished with school, it was about the time when another company was acquiring Hook's Drugstore that was called Revco. And Revco was primarily east, south. And I remember, never forget that moment. The district manager was touring, came in, and was asking, well, what are your plans? What are you going to do after school? And I'm like, oh, well, that's a good question. I'm not quite certain what I'm going to do. And he said, well, would you consider, retail management training? And I said, well, I'd consider really about anything at this point, just because there was that level of uncertainty. And yeah, so I jumped into retail management at the time with CVS Pharmacy. And this was back to 93 is when I started. In 95, I finished up. And it was a very extensive career. I ended up, going through and doing a lot of the store conversions from from Hooks to Revco, and the remodels and the system integration, the changes. From there, I ended up, going in and actually getting my own store at one point. And then another company came along, and gosh, to think of the growth, whenever the company that came along to purchase Revco was CVS Healthcare, CVS Pharmacy. And they were based out of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and, primarily east of the Mississippi drugstore chain. And now you look how mammoth of a company they are now with everything that they're doing. It's just huge. And with CVS, it was another, the great opportunity. They gave me a lot of executive leadership, training, everything from attending leadership schools to customer service, a lot of training and development, and a lot of credit goes to CVS and what they do with some of their training programs. And I was pretty successful in it, primarily in the Midwest. And then as CVS started to grow and expand into new markets, I had the opportunity to go to Chicago. And in case you didn't know, Chicago's huge for Walgreens.
Exactly.
And typically the two companies really kind of stayed out of each other's backyards for a minute. And then Walgreens started making a bigger footprint into the East. And that's when CVS entered into the Chicago market. And we started with a handful of stores in Chicago. And I opened up the very first downtown CVS, and it was at Wells and Jackson on the West Loop. One of those stores that opened up at 6 a.m. and closed by 4 p.m. just because that's what the traffic, warranted.
Wow.
At rush hour in downtown Chicago, we would probably have like 12 registers up and running at the same time. Mass amount of people coming in during the lunch hour. Yeah, it was a beast.
Wow.
It was very interesting. And again, I think that to that level of it was, getting that experience of managing that high volume, the Chicago market, and it opened up a lot of doors to other training. I came back to Indianapolis for a minute, and then that's when they said, hey, would you like to go to the West Coast market, which consisted of Arizona, California, and Nevada? And I was very proud to say that I was part of that initial group that actually opened up the entire West Coast market for CVS Pharmacy back in the day. Yeah, so it was a total of 15 years that I spent with the drugstore chain, and I totally respect the previous CEO, Tom Ryan, the current CEO named Larry Merlo. I know Larry on a first name basis. Whenever he'd fly to Arizona, I was one of the ones that would pick him up at the airport, and because it was a small group, and it was such an exciting market. And then from there, retail started to change significantly about that point, and I made a determination to really, not even really looking for the opportunities, just kind of more exploring things. And then out of the blue, had a headhunter call me from the banking finance world, and that was J.P. Morgan Chase. And they were J.P. Morgan at the Chase. Chase was at the time was looking to almost what CBS had already done. They were looking to company culture is very strange, and what I mean by that is that I love the idea of promoting from within, letting people go through the ranks, go through the chain. But unfortunately, when you do that time and time again as a company, all your company ever gets to know is what it knows and what those individuals have been trained, conditioned by the same systems. And so therefore, companies try to integrate by bringing outside of the company influence to kind of help the company grow and from the leadership perspective. And so, so JP Morgan launched a beta pilot program where they were bringing people with no banking finance experience at all, but they had the resume of multi-store management, things of that nature. I interviewed. I said, hey, I think it'd be a lot of fun to learn, banking finance. But Kim, let me tell you, I was never one to always tote the company line. I was one of the persons that was not afraid to push back on management, push back on executive management. And it's no fault of the companies, but I think in terms of what companies are managing now with the pressure on return on investments, companies are running very thin, very, very lean. And they're looking to really kind of change some of the services and some of the expectations, the levels that they had. And I had some fundamental differences with those, all along the way. And most of the company cultures that I worked in, I felt very comfortable pushing back. But I always had the idea that, what, at some point in my career, I would love to jump into entrepreneurship. It was one of those things I was afraid to do because, when you're in corporate America and they're paying your mortgage and they're paying your health insurance and they're giving you that nice, healthy annual bonus, they got you. they got you where they want you.
They got you.
They got you. They do. But I built a 2-year exit strategy to start planning to get from there. And I had a good buddy who was out in Oregon at the time, and he reached out to me, and we'd been friends. Funny enough, we were online gaming buddies for like 12 years. We're still great friends and everything. And he was like, "Hey, listen, I'm working at a farm, and I've learned to grow and cultivate cannabis, and I'm pretty darn good at it. In fact, I started doing some extraction and making my own product, which were labeled at the time Canna Ranchers." And he was always one of those that was more like a hands-on type person. He really loved the hands-on aspect, and he knew my background in terms of business and some of those things. And he said, "Hey, would you be interested in launching a company?" So 3 years ago, we launched BHO, Beyond Honey Oil, an Oregon-based company to try to explore that. And Oregon quickly became such a huge saturated market, from there. But that's when I first got started into the hemp cannabis related industry. I've always had a passion for technology and for what we're doing here, doing our podcast. I think it's such a great way to network, such a great way to expand your community, to help educate. And that's why I love doing the entire podcast platform. So it's kind of a perfect blend. And so I made the determination that, hey, you know what, I'm going to go full healthcare related company. And the healthcare related company is going to be involved in multifacets of this industry, whether it's hemp, cannabis, whether it's technology, healthcare related systems. So that's kind of the company that we're working to build out, with BHO Ventures, which is the corporation that will launch January of next year. And we have a few LLCs that we're helping to manage and to drive performance of. So so it's a very exciting time. And and Rogue 420, which is the media and marketing component of BHO Ventures. That's why I love doing the Forefront. I would love to continue doing the podcast and expanding on those, because it's just so much fun to learn from people, spend time learning about them, their backgrounds, kind of like what we're doing here, Kim. And that's where I am today.
It's, that's the fun stuff. One of my projects that I have going on right now, my day job, um, I'm helping out another recruiter just with some screens, and I don't know how many people really know what the screening process is like going through, but I've been on both sides of that. And what I don't like is exactly what I try to incorporate into the experience at whatever level you're in. If it's the screen, if it's the final interview, onboarding, training and development, retention, and so forth. But that is, I want you to have a positive experience, and I want you to feel good about you being you, because so many people try to regurgitate information from the resume, which is word stuffed. It's SEO, it's all word stuffed. It's really, resumes are set for the ATS system. They're really not set for you talking about what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? Where do you want to take your career? So I've noticed that, and I think some of that just has to do with age, maturity. But as I'm screening some of these people, they're so nervous, and I just want to get this job. And I want to say, listen, if the job isn't right for you, buddy, or if you feel that nervous about representing yourself this way, take a breather.
Right.
You
Right.
need to get back to what you're good at. If you want to play the lute, and nobody in Indiana, Valparaiso, Indiana, if nobody's doing that there, then be the best lute player in Valparaiso, Indiana you could possibly be. And I applaud your efforts.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And too many people are trying to fit themselves in. See, there's that hair I told you about.
It just keeps going the other way on you.
It does.
Maybe you slept on it the wrong way or something.
I must have. But, hey, side note, have you ever slept on your ear wrong?
Yes, and then you wake up the next day and your equilibrium's off and whatever, everything else happens.
Well, maybe I'm just naturally loopy. I haven't had that, but I feel like I've been boxed in my ears all night. Like I was, Greco-Roman wrestling. I have cauliflower ear or something.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. That is too funny. Yeah, so, and again, I think in terms of how do we apply these things in terms of the industry, and that's why it's so intriguing to watch the hemp and cannabis industry grow. And as these things start to evolve, regarding, corporations, company structures, HR things, and the different players that are coming into it. And I'm just amazed. It's great to see whether it's the investment world that's finally coming along, whether it's the technology, the different level of services, and even from the consulting side, the consulting arm to come into it, as well, and help companies develop and grow. The thing that I find it interesting is that it's such a new dynamic industry that I don't want to say that you have to take everything that you previously knew or that you previously perceived the way things are going to be, before you jump into this industry, especially offer the goods and services. And it's interesting we're going this direction because it's one of the things that I think that we should talk a little bit around, and that's just improving the people who are listening to us, is to just ensure that you're doing due diligence on your part, and that could be foreign to some people as far as fact checking. And I've learned in this industry, there's so many people who have just over committed to things, even dating back to Oklahoma, to Oregon, to what we're currently doing. And it's just to do your due diligence before jumping into those relationships. It's just so important to do some of those things.
Yes. Sometimes it just requires a yes.
Yeah, and it can be simple, how I referred it to, there was, one company, for example, that was wanting to do, consulting, and so I received a proposal, for that extension. And when I looked at the business header in terms of their actual company formation, I found out which state that they were should have been registered in. and just, you can easily go to a state's Secretary of State website and do a business search
Mhm.
and verify that company and verify who, to ensure the person that they're meeting with saying that, hey, I'm the business owner, and that they're truly the owner and affiliated with that business. And as excited that we are to find people to help us, excited to find people to help grow, it's just important to do the due diligence, do your fact checking with every level of either partnership or finance or any of the agreements. To do that, get yourself a reputable attorney that's going to help, drive some of those non-disclosure agreements, those items to help you succeed. And I've seen it one too many times, Kim, where people have really been hurt and lost a significant amount of their time, their efforts, their money of not doing that. So it's just something I really encourage, no matter where you are, whether you're 2 years into it and you've had luck and that you haven't had like something like that hit you yet, but just in case, just ensure, do your due diligence part, ensure you have those things in place, because it's just so necessary. There's so many people excited about this industry, and kind of like I've had this discussion and said this numerous times with you, regardless of whatever industry it is, whether it's education, whether it's police, there's going to be good and bad actors. It's just an variable that we can't control. So as an entrepreneur, as a startup and everything, that's up to you to do that due diligence.
You're absolutely right. And along with that, um, I think it's also properly representing yourself. You know, how are you representing yourself, the industry, your business? All of that is really packaged moving forward into the industry, which is it's interesting, and I think it's happening very quickly. Are you seeing this happen with not just the regulatory issue, but with traditional industries, that it's mainstreaming quickly because now you have your supply chain people who are eagerly being scooped up by these big businesses.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
they're requiring lean sigmas. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
who would have thought that 5 years ago, much less 10 years ago, that you would be requiring not just a person who happens to carry that distinction, but they're actually seeking these qualifications out.
Right.
And and speaking of which, not a political post, but it goes along with this. I posted on through the pipeline strategies because it was really focused more about representing yourself and
Mm-hmm.
your qualifications. But there was a Trump administration appointee, employee,
Uh-huh.
and she completely lied on well, the article said she embellished, but when the UN actually says we don't have that panel and this person never spoke to this panel, that's not an embellishment.
Right.
She placed herself on a fake Times cover magazine.
Oh my
Time,
goodness.
I know. And this was like her portfolio that she presented to receive this position with the White House.
Wow.
Regardless of any administration, that stuff, number one, it should have been vetted from that side, from the
Mm-hmm.
administration side. Absolutely, it should have. That due diligence should have happened just the same as you should be doing your due diligence on the company, the brand, the industry, all the players you're working with, making sure CYA,
Mm-hmm.
everything's covered. But when you're presenting your business presentations and pitch decks, are they properly protected? The people who are viewing them, have they signed an NDA?
Right.
Like, a lot of things that people, I think, are too willing to post on their excitement on social media, and they're not protected.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And again, more importantly, just the self-assessment if something is or is not in your wheelhouse, and being able to
Yeah.
build those networks. It's just, very important to know and understand that. I'm very straightforward whenever, I start talking to some of the finance guys in terms of, raising capital and the equity and everything else. I'm like, time out. I've never really done that before myself. I know about, loans and all that kind of good stuff, but so I had to go out and find that expert, find that right partner who knows about those things, instead of, trying to figure them out on your own, or Googling search terms.
Yeah. When people start asking me, what series are you? I'm like, I don't know. I have a series 6 20s. They're like, no, 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 investments. I'm like, I'm not there. That's
Yeah.
not where I am.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I'm self-funded,
Hmm.
and I'm in the process of getting funding that, that'll be able to springboard me up. But yeah, I'm not at the Shark Tank, any of that kind of seeding. No,
Yeah.
that's not where I am. But
Right.
that's also very good to know.
Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
you going in that direction, or are you just going to be, well, since I live in Boulder, it seems so appropriate. Are you the hippie who's making your stuff in your kitchen or your RV and selling it at the farmer's market,
Hmm.
or to your friends?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and one of the persons I've interviewed before on Rogue platform, not the Rogue 420 platform, but I should have sent you the link to read about it. But obviously, you know how cryptocurrencies and blockchain solution is really fit. The entire fintech sector is really going to transform, and we're starting to see a little of that integration to our industry with hemp and cannabis. And I think that the entire blockchain can really help, not only from the supply side, but also from some of the seed to sell integration, and to help the growers have better products, getting some feedback from the patients. But it's interesting. So there was one company, and it's a foreign company, and I should have read through the article again or listened to the podcast again. But it's pretty unique, and what they're doing is they're allowing pretty much anyone to grow or participate in the cannabis industry, and they're raising funds. And what those funds do is you're actually purchasing a plant, and you own that plant in this country, and you generate the revenue, or a portion of the revenue from the sales of once that plant goes through, and then they do payouts and everything for it. So it's built on
Interesting.
it's very creative. It really is. I'll send you the links afterwards, and maybe we can have a follow-up discussion. But some of those
Yeah.
things are, yeah, some of those really cool technologies are coming online. And there was another aspect of it as well, and that's where basically, let's say whether it's a seed or a clone, and you develop a QR code for that, and that QR code goes into the blockchain, and from the actual point of every time that plant is touched or becomes a processed or product, all the way to the consumer end, that the consumer can actually scan that QR code and see the progress of that plant, where it came from, where it originated, and then actually send feedback directly to the grower that, hey, this is the effects, this is how it worked for me. And just some really cool emerging technologies to help our industry grow.
Okay, so here's another one. Whomever is listening and takes this idea, um, throw a couple shingles my way. But wouldn't that be cool if what you're talking about is combined with like Waze? I mean, I haven't used Waze in probably 5 years or more, but are you familiar with Waze?
Yes, I
That
am.
app?
Yes,
That
yes.
would be kind of cool. How you see your little um oh poop, what's it called? Avatar.
Uh-huh.
Um your little poop avatar.
Uh-huh.
How you get your little crowns and they get bigger, or
Yeah.
maybe it's a cola, and then when it's harvest, it turns into a different. But that would be, I think that would be kind of a fun app. It reminds me of when I was in like the reader club in second or third grade, how the teacher had like a racetrack on a board. You
Yeah.
had your little, and you can take it.
Hmm.
That would be cool. You have your QR code attached with an app.
There you go. And then you can follow
Compare with others.
your entire weed map and everything together.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. There are a couple of articles that I wanted to share with you. Let me go into screen share here real
Okay.
quick and share it with you. I thought these were pretty interesting. The first one was just this is a new statistic on the Pew poll findings, and in the past, Kim, support for cannabis legalization has always leveraged around 60%, somewhere in there. We're getting new statistics for 2019, and the data is coming through is that, I'll just read it real quickly. Support for legalization of marijuana grew again this year, with just over 2/3 of Americans in favor of the policy, according to the new Pew Research Center poll. The poll was released on Thursday. The actual survey, which can involve phone interviews with about 9,900 adults from September the 3rd through the 15th, found that 67% of respondents think cannabis should be legal. That's 5% higher, 5 points higher than the Pew's last poll in 2018. So we're continuously watching this national momentum occur for national legalization, where people support legalization in one form or the other. So that's pretty darn exciting. What are your thoughts?
I agree. It's if you go back to that the graph, you can see like the point of impact. Yeah, I was going to point to it as though you can see, like we're doing a share screen, and you could follow my finger, but you know, but that point of impact where they cross the intersection, that's the
Yep.
exciting point. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's the point of once you get a little bit past that, you can look back and say that was the defining moment when now you're going to start seeing things happening exponentially. You know,
Yep.
the same thing that gets wrapped up into these other issues that we as I guess the industry and the country, the belief system around it is moving forward, because all of
Yeah.
a sudden now I have people coming out of the cannabis closet. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
say that they're medicators at all. They're just saying they're in support of, and to me that's coming out of the cannabis closet. You're not
Yep.
afraid to say, you know, there's some merit to this plant on some way, shape, or form, some product, service, or whatnot. There is definitely merit here, and that intersection is the defining moment we can always look back on and say, like, boom, that was a big boom.
Right. Yeah. And then shameless plug here, but the other article is going to come is from rogue420 .net. And this is pretty interesting. And that's the fact that Michigan is ahead of schedule. So Michigan adult use in Michigan is set for recreational to launch on December 1st. And that's a full month ahead of schedule. So again, adult use cannabis sales launch in Michigan on December 1st. I know there are a lot of Hoosiers that are very excited about that, Kim, as they'll be able to follow the state guidelines that do allow for, out of state residents to participate. Originally, Kim, they had targeted January 1st of 2020 for Michigan's use for their recreational launch use, and they're ahead of schedule. So they're targeting December 1st, which is right around the corner.
If there could be any reason for a Buckeye to give kudos to a Wolverine, here we go. Because Ohio is woefully behind, woefully, in so many areas, including hemp. And here you can look to, the gloved hand right next to us. Look to them for some inspiration. Way to go, Wolverines.
Yep, absolutely. And then one of the last ones, and I have several, colleagues or people in my network, and I guess we're friends on Facebook, so I guess you could call them officially friends now. But also just want to bring attention to the National Women's Conference, which is quickly approaching December 10th, and that's in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's one of the largest events for women of the cannabis industry and conference coming together. Several, I have not personally attended. I need to make it a point to attend. I'm not sure if my schedule will allow this year, but that's right around the corner. You can still purchase tickets, get involved, find out about their different classes. The speakers are going to be involved with it. Very, again, I think that our industry has been very focused and compassed on, really allowing women to become involved in this industry. And when I look at some of these companies, and whether it's the banking finance or whether it's the advocacy or even the doctors, everything associated with it, it's pretty darn cool to see women coming to the forefront of a lot of these different sectors.
It is. It's wonderfully exciting. And I'm going to do. I think Kristen Yoder, if you're connected with her on LinkedIn, she's
Yep.
that. Yeah, she's the bullshit sniffer.
Okay.
I love that. That's in her tagline.
I love it.
I'm the
I love
bullshit
it.
sniffer.
Yeah.
But I'm positive she's going to that, and I'm so, because I mean I'm only in Colorado. It's only like an hour
Yeah.
flight, so I'm like this close, but at the same time,
You can jump in
so
one of those. You can jump in one of those little cloud hoppers and be up and down in no time at all, Kim.
seriously, I know. So I'm still holding out hope. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited about it, whether I'm there or not. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely
And
there in spirit with the sisters.
sure. And then this weekend is the Midwest Hemp Council's cannabis hemp at the Crossroads event here in Indianapolis, Indiana. So it's a trade show. There'll be lots of guest speakers there. The gosh darn, I just lost my train of thought. The hemp road tour with Rick. Gosh darn it, what's his last name? He's huge in the hemp industry. I'll remember it once we're off of our podcast. Maybe the first name's not even Rick now that I think about it. It's pretty sad. I did a podcast with him like 2 years ago. But anyway, yeah, he's going to be one of the speakers there. And I plan on attending, obviously, because it's in my backyard. But yes, it's never a dull moment. So very exciting things continue to happen, to evolve in our space. Kim, any closing thoughts before we wrap up this session of Speaking Bluntly podcast?
I just want everyone to get involved with us. Talk, chat, ask questions. It could always be asking for a friend, but we'll answer. It's hemp eyes.
Hemp eyes.
I don't know. What is that? You'll have to write it down.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. And, again, there's tons of resources available. And again, make sure you check out Kim. You have the different Facebook pages, so the Cannabis sessions. So check that out, as well as Harvest Plume's Facebook page, and then the Pipeline Strategies, which is kind of, your main work that you do there. And I'm excited to continue to watch that grow as well for you.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited because it feels like I can't believe it took this long, but it took me to literally mid-career, mid-life, all reference for us. That's right. Go Bucks.
I like it, Scott.
And I just lost my train of thought. But anyway, it just all comes together, and I'm excited that I have this arsenal of people strategies that now I can go forward and present to other people. And that's, by the way, quick plug on the magazines. That all came together with adult learning theory and training and development. That's why these magazines are digitally optimized. It's not just, a digital magazine. There's actually theory behind it, and it gets you involved. It gets you under the learning retention portion, as well as keeping the conversation more elevated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I kind of veered away on, I went way down a different track.
No, I love the digital. I love the entire digital platform. We'll have to maybe do an entire show based upon that and the creativity that you have at the Pipeline Strategies. I probably will need to take you up on some of that work come early next year.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I definitely will.
You know what? You get free. Everyone else has to pay.
Well, don't say that too loud, because see how it works in our space. And again, check out Kim's work. And again, this is Carlos. And please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. To check out our platforms, our podcast, and share in your community. And that's how we continue to grow. And Kim, it's been a lot of fun as always this week. And we'll be back next Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Mountain, for another Speaking Bluntly podcast. Kim, always lots of fun. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks. Same to you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.